Hi, Philip Nathan again. In this video, I'm going to talk about our taking personal responsibility for our own well-being and for the well-being of others, and our taking responsibility for the decisions we make and the actions we take. This is, of course, seen as being in line with the core principles of us supporting our own well-being and the well-being of all others, and preventing and reducing pain and suffering for ourselves and all others too. These principles are already set out in these videos and described in the Living Humanism guides. Having such a sense of responsibility is seen as a route to maximizing our own personal well-being and the well-being of all others. Now, through each of us taking personal responsibility for the well-being of ourselves and others, and by taking responsibility for our personal decisions, personal conduct and actions, we see a number of benefits. In the first place, we serve our own well-being because taking such responsibility sets us as individuals a personal goal of fulfilling the core principles and points us firmly in the direction of fulfilling our own personal need to care for, maximizing delivering well-being both to ourselves and others. And secondly, through this taking of responsibility, we motivate ourselves to action and are better able to focus on our key goals, with the consequence that our well-being goals are more likely to be achieved. And you can contrast this in our personal lives, perhaps leaving responsibility to others or no one at all, with the likely negative consequence of that. Through this decision to take personal responsibility, we lay the responsibility for events in our own lives at the feet of that person who is frequently best able to recognize problems in terms of their own well-being and who can play a significant role in solving problems tied to well-being, pain and suffering. That is, namely ourselves. And this taking of responsibility provides us with the basis for effective action, with many of us individually motivated by that sense of responsibility, motivated to take action and also to cooperate together with and work with others and help each other to effectively support the achievement of well-being for ourselves and others. Our not taking such responsibility for others, for creating change for the better in our own lives and in regards to the world of others, our not taking responsibility for change in the world around us, change which supports well-being and helps prevent and avoid pain and suffering, our failure to take such action and make change happen will of course damage the well-being of others and ourselves, supporting situations where those in need are left without the help and support they may desperately need. But our assuming personal responsibility for our own actions, thinking, personal conduct, decisions, and indeed outcomes and events generally leads us to action and optimally effective action. Failing to take responsibility for our own decisions and actions, and as part of this, our blaming others, holding others, but not ourselves responsible, not only serves to damage the general well-being, it hurts us as individuals, disempowers us, weakens us, and can diminish us in front of our communities, societies, and beyond. And it can be a cause of significant personal pain. Admitting our responsibility to ourselves is not only more likely to lead to our taking action, sometimes in alliance with others, but leads us to acknowledge our errors through our taking personal responsibility for and acknowledging our mistakes. And where this is done genuinely and truthfully, sometimes in front of others, this is a powerful thing to do for ourselves and others, for our families and communities, often leading to deepened love, respect and reconciliation, leading to the opportunity for greater effectiveness in our actions and the actions of others, all important expressions of our support for greater well-being, helping us to move away from blame to the solution of problems, as well as often supporting better futures for all. Our taking such individual responsibility for the world and the people around us does not mean, of course, that there aren't other factors, other significant influences shaping our lives, factors beyond our immediate and close control, affecting our decisions, affecting our communities and societies, and the world we live in. It does not mean that we're not heavily influenced by those communities and societies, the cultures and beliefs around us. It does not mean that there are not constraints on what we can do, or in fact that, as just said, there are not things beyond our control. For example, clearly there are natural and human-created disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, wars, famines, destructive and violent political movements as well. There are callous and powerful, uncaring individuals. While we have a responsibility to act and act as effectively as we can, even in the most trying circumstances, we should be careful about causing ourselves pain by accepting an inappropriate level of blame for things which may have been entirely beyond our control. Indeed, we should avoid feeling traumatic levels of personal guilt for example, dark events that take place around us and on our planet, which were substantially or are substantially beyond our capacity to influence. Although that being said, much can be influenced. Feeling such intense guilt will indeed damage our own well-being, causing us much pain and unhappiness. But we can and should assume some sense of responsibility with all of these dark events, yes, in particular, moving us to take action, which we can do individually with others, taking action to alleviate the pain of such events, or doing what we can to stop the occurring rising of these events or damage to others. We need to support the well-being of others and reduce pain and suffering, and need to do what we can in the face of what may be significant and sometimes might seem overwhelming demands. So through accepting our responsibility, we can do our utmost, act with all the power we have in concert with others to either prevent these difficult events arising in the future or set in place remedies, solutions, ameliorations once such events have happened. And this is a key benefit of taking on personal responsibility, from which we can feel and recognize and act on our personal sense of responsibility, aiming to do all we can to help others. And in a positive and opposite sense, we need to take responsibility for the positive things we achieve and help achieve in our communities, societies, and beyond. In our many different work contexts, we need to appreciate ourselves and take responsibility for our achievements and our contributions to the groups, teams, and organizations of which we are a part, whether we're making garments in a factory or at home, harvesting crops, designing and building houses, repairing vehicles, treating illnesses, and much more. We need to acknowledge our responsibility and our contribution through the taxes we pay for the funding of health service, the support of those in need, for safety in the street, for clean cities, the absence of war where war is absent, the well-being and successes of our children, the cleanliness of our local environment, and the many other things we may contribute to as individuals, communities, and societies. Having talked about a responsibility to others, it needs to be said that our taking entire responsibility for the well-being of all other individuals, aside from not being necessarily practical, given the wide range of individual cases, our taking of such a level of responsibility may well not be wanted by others, which include ourselves, who will most likely wish to take responsibility for their own well-being as far as they can. This being part of each of our sense of autonomy, freedom, our sense of independence, our sense of self and self-value. This is important and needs to be noted and taken account of, as well as when considering our actions in taking responsibility for and supporting others. Concerned with the well-being of others, we wish for others to have, where they wish this, and most of us do, their own sense of autonomy and independence. We wish for others to have such a sense of individual responsibility too. But where others at a distance are suffering, or close or at a distance are suffering, we can, as already pointed to in other videos, provide them with various support, medical assistance, emotional and moral support, where we can as friends, where we can, yes. We can provide food, shoulder to cry on, support to end conflicts and violence, and much more. And to this degree, we must certainly take responsibility for the well-being of others, and we must act to the degree that we have the capacity to act, or develop our capacity to act further. And we must act to a degree that is reasonable, given our responsibility for our own well-being. We cannot and must not leave such support to others, and we must not ignore the suffering and pain of others. In an additional constructive sense, recognizing the importance of well-being and our personal responsibility for supporting the well-being of others, we can support others in their communities and societies by promoting positive values, such as tolerance, love, justice, freedom, democracy, human rights, and more. And in our own lives, we need to take responsibility for our choices, for ourselves, for our actions. That means taking responsibility, for example, for our future careers and setting out a plan of action, perhaps. It might mean taking greater responsibility for our health through a commitment to healthy eating and an exercise program. It might mean taking action and responsibility, when this is possible, for our financial well-being. And this might include social and political action to ensure our own well-being and the well-being of others. When we're suffering ourselves, perhaps we don't need the motivation of the thoughts penned here, well, what I'm saying here, but as far as we can, we need to take responsibility to take the range of action needed to support our own well-being. And not only in such times of pain and suffering, but in regard to our general living, we need to be taking responsibility and finding pathways and actions such that we, as individuals and others around us, can avoid pain and suffering and enjoy well-being at the moment and into the future. There's much more to be said about taking personal responsibility. And again, there's more about this in the Living Humanism book guides. If you have comments, please place them in the chat or comments box below. The next video goes on to look at the importance of honesty and integrity. Thanks again for listening.